All right, so this is a studio session from Kalen. Here on the show today, I have Mr. Julio Rosas from Townhall. We're going to get into Julio's life, and I hope it's as interesting as he makes it seem on Twitter. But, you know, he's got 150K on there.
128, I believe. So
Okay.
But who's counting?
Right, exactly. Who's counting? So, Julio, you came out here. Normally, you're in D.C.
In the D.C. area, yeah.
Okay, and what do you do at Townhall?
So I am their senior writer, which basically is kind of a jack of all trades type of deal. So I didn't want to just focus on one thing, or kind of be, because in the media industry realm, you're either like a breaking news reporter or you're a beat reporter, and so I kind of combined the two into kind of one. And so then when I was being poached by Townhall from the Washington Examiner, I said, well, can I be a senior writer, since, you know, you're kind of giving me all these responsibilities? And they're like, well, we don't normally give out senior to someone who's new to the company. It's like, but just for you, we'll do it. And I'm like, all right, that's cool. So that's why I'm the senior writer. And so I'm not a reporter over there, because I still kind of old-fashioned in the sense that I think that if you're a reporter, you don't give your opinion. And a lot of stuff I don't put my opinion on it, especially when I'm on the ground covering, you know, whatever. But afterwards, I do analysis. I do give my opinion sometimes. Just depends on the topic. But for the most part, I just do straight down, you know, neutral sort of reporting.
Dope. When did you start? Let's go back to early Julio Rosas, like right out of the womb. Excuse me, right out of the womb. What were you doing? What were your interests as a child? Were you into reading, writing? You know, tell us about that. You grew up in Illinois. Mm-hmm. It wasn't Chicago, was it?
No. Okay. So what I was doing right out of the womb, probably crying. I know I was breathing. That much was obvious.
Yeah.
But fast forwarding a little bit. So So I grew up mostly in Illinois. As I was telling her, I actually lived in Huntington Beach for a quick spell, and then we moved back to Illinois. So are you familiar with Wheaton College by any chance?
No. Is Wheaton in Illinois?
Yeah.
Okay.
So
I know Blackhawk.
Wheaton,
you know Blackhawk?
Like the bird, or
it's a college in the Quad Cities. It's like
the hockey team.
I mean, there is a hockey team, but there's a college in the Quad Cities where my dad grew up in Illinois.
Okay. It's in the Quad Cities. Okay.
Yeah. I don't know if you know what that is, but
I'm familiar with it. But anyway, so I grew up in Wheaton for the most part, and which, for a frame of reference, so there's Chicago, the city. Then you have like the Chicago neighborhoods / suburbs, and then you have the suburbs outside of that. So we're only about like 45 minutes outside Chicago on a good day of traffic. And so I was, growing up, I was actually really interested in art. And so I drew a lot as a kid.
You're one of those guys.
Kind of. And so I grew up particularly liking military history, because when I was very young, a friend of my mom's, he introduced me to Gettysburg, and we were soldiers when I was like 8 or 9.
Okay.
And we were soldiers is rated R for a good reason. But so I watched 2 of those movies, and so that's what got me interested in military history, which then naturally got me interested in the military in general, which comes into play a little bit later. But so I wasn't necessarily like a writer. I mean, I was, in terms of like schooling, and I was fine with like English or what have you, but I didn't discover that I really liked writing and reporting until my senior year of high school, when I had to take kind of an elective class to fill my schedule, because I already filled up all the requirements. And so this was kind of like one of those like throwaway classes that you just take. And so it was writing for the school newspaper. It was learning about the basic tenets of journalism. And so that's really the only formal education training I've had to be a journalist, was just kind of a weird class in high school.
Interesting. Because when you look at like your online Twitter persona, I would think like this guy's got years of like, he's probably got a bachelor's degree and all that stuff. So I think it's really interesting. And now you're just writing, and you write every day. You're writing something every day.
Yeah.
But you saying that you mix sort of the reporting and the journalism, and you give some opinion, but you try to.
Okay, I'm going to take these. I'm not PFD, but these are prescription. But I'm not gonna do the whole thing.
All right. That's fine. It's fine. But what was the last story you wrote? Where do you see yourself, like, in terms of where you were to where you are now? What's some of the biggest changes that you've had to make, sort of entering into this field and developing as a writer?
So I don't have a bachelor's degree, just period. I actually dropped. I didn't drop. Well, I did drop out, but I just never went back to school. So I finished my sophomore year in 2017, and then I applied for a fellowship at Independent Journal Review. I got it, and so being kind of the cocky person I knew I could be, I told my parents, like, hey, I know I can turn this into a full-time job. I can skip the last 2 years of school in the career. And, one of the ways that I like journalism is because, as I told you before, it's one of the fields where you don't necessarily need a college degree. It's definitely one of those things where you can gain experience over time. And a good friend of mine at the Washington Free Beacon, Bill McMorris, he told me, this is after I moved out here, he said that if you have 3 years of, like, consistent writing experience, you're golden. And that kind of proved to be true, because after my third year, that's when I really started to get the opportunities I did. But before all that, I moved out to the Washington, D.C. area in May of 2017. And the reason why I did that is because seeing the reaction to Trump winning and seeing how crazy the campaign was, and I was like, well, the White House is just going to be absolute bonkers.
Right, yeah.
And it proved to be true, right?
Yeah.
And so I knew that if there was a time to get a head start when the going is good, when the content's there, and when there's going to be all sorts of craziness happening, this would be the time.
Absolutely.
And so it was kind of a right time, right place kind of thing, and I don't think I'd be able to replicate that, say, now or even 2 years ago. It was really kind of good timing on everything. And to provide an example of that, the first protest that I covered after I moved out, because I'd covered protests before, but the first protest I moved out, when I was out there in the D.C. area, was actually Charlottesville.
Oh,
which wasn't even really a protest. It was
that was the first one.
There was the first. Well, it was the first
you went to.
First riot that I went to.
Okay, yeah.
After I dropped out of college.
Dude, that was crazy. Just looking at that on the news and, like, the car going through the people, and the tiki torches, all that stuff.
It was insane. And a friend of mine, he told me like a month earlier before it was going to happen that, hey, this is happening. And I said, he's like, do you want to? Because he didn't have a car, and I did, so that's why he invited me.
Oh, right. Yeah.
And so he didn't even know. I mean, he didn't even know how crazy and insane it was going to get. But I was like, yeah, I think it was like a Sunday or Saturday. I forgot what day it was. But it was like, well, it's on a weekend, so, like, I got nothing going on. Sure, why not? And then when we finally get there, it was just like, oh my gosh, like, this is not what I really signed up. But it's like, but I love it.
What was your opinion? Because I don't know that much about Charlottesville. I don't really know too many people who are actually there. What percentage of the attendees were, like, actual white supremacist KKK Nazis? Was it all of them?
It was like the vast majority of
all
them.
of them.
It was from what I saw.
Yeah.
It was pretty much all of them. And
That's pretty crazy.
And to provide, like, one of the funny things that I like telling was, after they declared, like, a state of emergency, they were pushing everybody out of the park. Well, obviously, the Unite the Right people were very upset.
Yeah.
And so they were fighting back against the cops, because the cops in riot shields were coming down and pushing everyone out. And there was one white guy. He was shouting. He was like, "Why are you guys doing this? We're on your side. We're protecting us white people."
Uh-huh.
And I could see that the officer that he was yelling at, or that he was pushing back against his right, he wasn't white. I think he looked Hispanic. I don't know. He was on the browner side of things.
Okay.
And so I told him, I was like, "Hey, that guy's not white." And he's like, "Oh, well, the rest of you, like, we're." It was just like, oh gosh, guy. So yeah, no, there were Nazis there. There were very much white supremacist people there. And then of course the thing is, like, well, even if let's say no one, there wasn't one guy, or there was a few people that weren't white supremacists, it's like, well, you're rallying with people who are clearly racist. So it's like, why are you doing that if you don't subscribe to that type of way of thinking?
Exactly.
Now I will say, kind of thing that gets lost in the mix really quick with that is, after they had pushed everybody out of the park, the white supremacist people, they marched away, and so we thought it was over, and so then we went into town because it was really like a few blocks away to get some food, to get drinks and celebrate, like, hey, we just survived this kind of crazy thing.
Right.
And then about 45 minutes later, that's when we then saw the news that a car had ran through, and so I wasn't there. I didn't see that, and so that just kind of provides more context on that, because it wasn't one thing that happened right after the other. It was about an hour after. Again, we thought things were mostly over, but yeah, no. But that set the tone really towards the media coverage of Trump, and obviously how Trump handles things, whether for better or for worse. But that's what kind of kicked things off, and then we had the congressional baseball practice shooting. I think it was before Charlottesville, but so
was that with the judge? Was that the judge?
No. It was the
Sorry.
No. It was the Republicans practicing for the congressional baseball game.
Okay.
In Alexandria, Virginia. And then that's when that Bernie bro tried to shoot up, because there's senators there, there's congressmen there, and the only reason why that that no one else died besides him was because of the Steve Scalise, who's the whip and who rates a security detail from the Capitol Hill police. They were there, and so they were able to return fire and kill him without, thankfully no one on the congressional side dying. But so it was kind of those two things, and then it was just kind of off the races, because then it's just one thing right after the other. And then of course this past summer with coronavirus and riot after riot after riot, or fiery but mostly peaceful protests. So all that kind of just like, okay, well, I think I made a good decision to to not go to school, or to not continue school and get a head start of things, because like I said, if I try to recreated that at a different time, or if I did try to complete school 2 years later, I think I would have had a little bit more of a difficult time than where I am now.
So okay, you got a head start. Were you always that type of kid? Like, were you a sports kid? Were you kind of nerdy? Were you in the books a lot? Were you you get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Did you play sports? Were you an athlete?
No.
Not an athlete.
No.
Bookworm.
I did. I was the football team manager.
Okay.
Senior of high school.
So you're managing the football team.
Yeah, I was managing.
What does that mean? You got the water for the kids, or
kind of? I mean,
okay.
yeah, well, I wasn't the water boy. No, let's be clear. I wasn't the water boy, but I did help out with water occasionally.
Okay.
Something. But no. So I was kind of. I wouldn't say I wasn't like a nerd. I'm not saying like it was like a comic book or like anime type thing. Honestly, I was just kind of my own thing. I mean,
yeah, you were your own guy. You wouldn't necessarily fall into like being a nerd. It's okay if you like anime. That's fine.
But no, fine, whatever.
Some people might disagree. I don't know.
So, like I said, so in high school, that's when I decided to join the Marine Corps Reserves. So I was kind of focused on that. So it wasn't necessarily like being a jock, but it was prepping myself for that and going through the enlistment process. And so I went into the reserves instead of active duty, because at the time my mom specifically wanted me to go to college.
Uh-huh.
And so I said, well, here's a compromise. Instead of waiting 4 years after an enlistment, because that's a typical enlistment is 4 years, and then you can get access to the GI Bill. So instead of doing that, I can go to college and be in the reserves at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
And so that was kind of the compromise. So I was kind of a year behind, because I had to wait a little bit before I shipped out, and then I had to go through all the schooling, and then I had to come back. And so.
Okay. So, riot coverage. That's been the biggest thing of the summer.
That's our thing.
I know.
Yeah, that's
Riot Squad, right?
Yeah, we had it
every time. Okay, so let's talk about that, because I got into this. I mean, and a lot of people did. Anybody who's kind of known for covering riots, obviously this happened right after George Floyd, around the end of May. One of the last days of May was when things started happening in Los Angeles. We had Fairfax riot, and then the next day we had the Santa Monica looting and riots and stuff, and I covered both of those things. Where were you at? Were you in D.C.? Were you at Lafayette Square? Were you covering that? Or because I believe I met you at CHAZ, but what were you doing right before that?
So I was actually here in Los Angeles.
Oh, you were?
with the lockdowns and everything, I was initially just staying at home in the DC area. Once I realized that, okay, we're really not going to be in the office for a long time, and the weather was still kind of crappy, so I was like, well, I'm just going to go visit, and be with my my family out here.
Right.
And also 'cause my dog's out here, so that's why. I remember waking up that Tuesday morning, and I like to operate on East Coast time while I'm out here.
That's good, though.
Just to kind of maintain my. I mean, it's to varying degrees of success.
Yeah.
But so I actually woke up kind of late that day, and then check Twitter like I always do, and I remember seeing this video and all this. I'm like, oh geez, like this is pretty bad. My initial thought was, okay, people are still kind of worried about coronavirus, so there will be protests about this, but I don't think people are going to gather initially to start off with, and then I was proven wrong that very day, and so it's because of that. That's why I didn't get to Minneapolis until Thursday. So
you were in Minneapolis also. I totally forgot about that. You were one of the first people there, weren't you? Kind of covering that.
Well, on the the conservative side of things, yeah.
Okay.
I would say I was one of the only ones. There was one other person from the Daily Caller, Kyle Hooten, who was there because he lives there in that he lives in that area. So he was able to be there on Wednesday night.
Okay.
So I pitched my bosses. I said, hey, like this is getting out of control. Like you got to send me. And so one of the things that Townhall that I made kind of what's the word? Kind of a requirement to join them was be like, hey, I like to cover protests. I like to cover riots when they happen. So when that opportunity arises, you can go ahead and send me out. So they approved it. They said yes. And so I was on the first flight out of Los Angeles. So I flew from LA to Minneapolis on that Thursday. And so then I was on the ground literally from like 11:30 a.m. till about 1 o'clock in the morning. And that Thursday night was the night that 3rd Precinct was abandoned.
Right.
It was set on fire. But I mean, there were so many things happening throughout the day that, I mean, even just looking back on it, I was just realizing like, wow, I missed a lot. But it's because there was just so much going on. And also because it was like the first time that I was covering something where things were just truly out of control. And true, like the basic tenets of what we know as a nice civilized society was just gone.
Yeah.
I mean, there was no Uber, that wasn't running, public transportation wasn't running. Literally every business in South Minneapolis was either being looted or was locked up. Nothing was open. And so I had to get kind of creative with trying to work in that environment. And so I learned a lot of things, and probably one of the most important thing was I needed body armor.
How are you getting around?
So I mostly just stayed in the neighborhood of the 3rd Precinct because that's where most of the stuff was happening.
Right.
But then by that Thursday afternoon, people were starting to loot and riot in St. Paul because that's right across the river there. And so I did try to go over there, but I mean, like I said, nothing was running. I couldn't get an Uber. I didn't have a car. And so I was just thinking, so I just kind of stayed there for literally the whole day. And then it was funny because after I had tweeted some of the video that I had gotten within the first hour that I was there, I only sent about 3 tweets. That's when Laura Ingram's people on Fox News reached out to me to appear on her show that night and to be on the ground. And I was just like, well, I'm not prepared for this at all, but like, I'll give it a shot. I'm on 3 hours of sleep. I have had almost no food, so hopefully that makes sense.
Right, yeah.
So her show starts at 10 o'clock Eastern, so 9 o'clock Central. And so probably about, everything was calm. Everything was fine for most of the day. There were a few kind of back and forths, but I don't want to say mostly peaceful, but it was. Because things are usually calm during the day, but then you got once it started.
Yeah, usually we know, like at nighttime, the sun starts going down.
That's when the people start, the agitators start coming out, and
yeah.
So all of a sudden, I see the demographics and like the different types of people in the crowd start to change.
Yeah.
Before it was like the older people in the community who were like actually saying like, yeah, let's keep it peaceful, let's get change done. Let's do this for George Floyd and what have you. And the next thing I know, I look up from my phone as it's getting dark, and it's like people in like black bloc.
Oh, really?
Like the younger people, like they're not wearing, like, yeah, they're wearing facial coverings, but it's not like face masks, like medical face masks. It's like black bandanas and red bandanas. And I was just like, oh gosh, here we go. And in literally 10 minutes before I was supposed to go on air because I was at the top of the hour, that's when all hell broke loose for that night because they were there was a fence that was put up around the 3rd precinct, and so they were starting to shake it down, and then that's when the cops that were on the roof for most of the day, they were like gone for like an hour, and then they appeared back up because obviously they could hear, and the people were throwing stuff, and so they started fire all sorts of crowd control munitions and all that. And so then I lost the camera crew I lost the Fox News camera crew. And so
wow.
And so I called them like, hey, are we still on? And then I'm like, where are you guys at? Because we were originally supposed to be in the auto zone that was burned out. That was across the street. That was initially we were supposed to do it. But then because they got lost in the chaos, they were at like near the Arby's that was on the other side.
Okay.
So I had to find them and run away. It was crazy. So I made sense. I didn't say I didn't. So they invited me back the next night.
Okay, good.
And so that was fine. But so yeah, that's what kind of kicked off what I'd like to call the summer of chaos. And so I
thought it was the summer of love.
Well, no, that's CHAZ.
You're saying
yeah, that's CHAZ. Yeah, no. And so I was initially supposed to be back in California on Sunday, but I was just really tired because I was like 3 days in a row, and then I got shot with a rubber bullet on Friday.
And that's when you decided I need the armor.
Right? Yeah. No,
That's
exactly.
when you decided you need the armor.
My initial thought was after I got hit was like, oh wow, this hurts a lot. I need to get out of here. But then my second thought was I need some body armor. But so I was supposed to come back on Sunday, and if I did, I kind of wish I did because then I would have been able to report on the Santa Monica ones because that's when it like happened. Was like Sunday.
Yes, that was wild, man.
But I couldn't do it because my flight was like way too early, and I was already out like Saturday night.
Yeah,
and so I changed it to Monday. There was still some minor stuff going on Monday, but because they had learned from the Rodney King riots, they kind of were able to put a damper on it. Not let it extend for like 3 days.
And it really could have.
It could have. Oh, absolutely. But they learned from that. So that's what kind of started everything, and then that's when I started to kind of gain more of a following, and people started to notice my work, which is nice. I mean, don't get me wrong. Like, it's nice that.
Where were you at in terms of like Twitter followers when you were in Minneapolis till I think maybe by the time, I could be wrong, you were in CHAZ, and I think I met you on the last day that you were there.
Yeah.
You were around 60.
So yes, I think so. So at the start of everything, before the start, I was around like 32,000 followers.
Okay.
I can't really remember by the time CHAZ, but that 60 does kind of sound correct. And so, like I said, now today after everything, I'm at like 127, 128.
Yeah.
And specifically, and I will say that my CHAZ coverage was like one of like the biggest leaps, one of the biggest months, just because it's actually really funny. When I pitched my bosses to send me to Seattle, they were still having like riots outside the East Precinct in the Capitol Hill neighborhood.
Oh, right.
And so when I initially pitched it to my bosses, it was still with that kind of coverage in mind. It was going to be riot coverage. And so by then I had a ballistic vest.
Yeah.
So I was like, all right, I'm ready to go. Like, I'm not ready to have a repeat of last time. So that was kind of the idea. But then literally the day before my flight, that's when they announced that they were going to abandon the precinct. And so my initial thought was, oh shoot, like what did I like did I just waste company money? What did I just do? But I said, well, everything's already kind of set, so might as well just go to kind of see where things are. So I was, in terms of the conservative realm, like conservative news media realm, I was literally the first one there. Like that first full day when CHAZ was up and running, if you could say it was up and running.
Yeah.
But then so I was there for that first full week of it being. I kind of wish I could have stayed longer, but I mean I was so tired and people were starting to notice who I was.
Really?
Yeah.
How did that affect? I mean, you're saying they noticed you, but I mean, what did that mean? They didn't want to talk to you, or they were trying to kick you out, or what was going on?
Well, one of the guys that noticed me. So I only planned on being there for about 3 days. So I only packed like 3 days worth of stuff. Like I said, I was there for almost a week, and so I had to reuse some of my shirts.
Gross, dude. That's disgusting.
No, it was fine.
No, it's not.
No, it was fine.
I'm just kidding.
And so, but I wore one of the shirts I wore was one of the shirts I wore when I appeared on Ingram's show.
Okay.
And then a few days later, I wore the same shirt, and then someone came up to me. I got to give him some props because I was actually wearing a mask and everything. But he comes up to me, he's like, "Weren't you on Fox News a few days ago?" And I was just like, "No." And so I walked away. But then there was some commotion going on, so that I kind of used that as an excuse to walk away from this dude.
Interesting.
I forgot about him because I was recording something that was going on, and then about 3 minutes later, he walks up to me with the YouTube video that Fox News posted from that segment, and he's like, "Yeah, it's you. You're wearing the same shirt." I'm like, "Oh, jeez." And then so thankfully he was just more upset that I lied to him, and so he just kind of walked away. Instead of trying to like you say like, "Hey, he's like with Fox News," or who knows what they would do. But so after that, I was kind of thinking like, "All right, I should probably leave."
Right. So you had those. You were there for a week, and after you left, where did you go after that? What did you do after that? Because I know that after I left CHAZ, I went to Tulsa. I covered Trump's rally there. And then I did DC, and I felt like there wasn't too much crazy stuff happening until Portland. Well, actually,
no, there was some.
Were you in Portland? Because Portland started getting crazy when I was in Tulsa, and then DC. I went 2 weekends in a row. Mm-hmm. But I finally made my way to Portland, and that's when I started seeing like just all the Multnomah, Justice Center siege. That was probably the craziest thing.
The federal courthouse.
Yeah. When did you get there, or were you spending some time back in DC? Or?
So I flew back to California after CHAZ.
Okay.
And then about a week later, that's when some news was coming out of Atlanta with the Rayshard Brooks case.
You were there with George.
Yes, I was there with Jorge.
That's right. Jorge
Ventura.
I think even my phone, when I get a text message, my phone even calls him Jorge. Siri does.
Yeah, see, there you go. You're just being racist. Trying to colonialize his name.
Right. Whatever.
And so there was rumors that there was going to be just like a full-on strike from the Atlanta Police Department because...
That's right. I remember that. They were calling it blue flu.
Well, yeah, the blue flu, everyone's calling out sick. Or most of the force was calling out sick. And so I was kind of thinking like, okay, there might be some riots. Some people might like take advantage of that by looting the city since there's not going to be much of a police presence. So I went down. So I flew from Los Angeles to Atlanta to cover that, and it was interesting because they didn't advertise it as being like a CHAZ where it was like an autonomous zone, but that's essentially what they were trying to make at the Wendy's where Brooks was killed.
They burned down the Wendy's, right?
They
burned down a different Wendy's, wasn't it?
No.
It was the same Wendy's the event happened at.
Yeah. It was the same Wendy's where in the parking lot where he got shot.
So tell me more, because I feel like there has some gun violence in your story coming up somewhere.
Yeah, there was.
Okay.
there was multiple. So like I said, they kind of were blocking off. So they were blocking off traffic around there and kind of making it their own space because then there was Juneteenth, which is So initially it was kind of like a just street party, in the evening. But then at night, there was just this. I wasn't there because we went to Jorge and I went to a police station nearby because there was some activity happening over there. Probably about 20 minutes after we left, that's when there was just a barrage of gunfire, and then someone got it on a live stream, and a girl got hit in the leg, and it was pretty bad. And so then the next night when we went over there again, the atmosphere kind of changed. There wasn't as many families. There wasn't as many kids. There were still a lot of people with guns, though. And then, probably about right around 10 o'clock, there was more gunshots that we were actually there for. And so then the last night we were there, everyone was tense. There was even fewer people than there was the nights previous. It was just great. It was kind of like CHAZ in terms of the violence that occurred there, because it took about just under a month for it to really get out of control. But in Atlanta, in that specific area by that Wendy's, it just got out of hand really quick at night. Literally every single night something was happening. And then Jorge and I, when we were leaving after we were there for our final night, we were just waiting for the Uber to come pick us up. And then someone just drove by and I don't know if they fired into the strip mall or they fired into the air, but someone just pulled up, popped a few rounds, and just drove off. And we're just like, where what's going on?
Yeah.
And so after Atlanta, I flew back to DC, and literally right after, as soon as I land in DC, that's when rioters tried to topple the Andrew Jackson statue in Lafayette Square.
Right.
And so literally I got home, I checked Twitter, I see this is because they're trying to make a Black House autonomous zone. That was kind of something that they were trying to create their own CHAZ, and so as part of their Baz, however you want to pronounce it, they wanted to tear down the statue of Andrew Jackson, and so I changed out of my clothes and I just headed right out the door, and I got there right as they had pushed everyone out of the police, and the park police had pushed everyone out. And everyone was upset. They were starting fires. They were one of the videos that really went viral that I caught was a white guy who had earlier was taking part in them trying to put the ropes on the statue to pull it down. I guess he put his hand on a black cop, and the black cop just shoved him to the ground. And so this white guy who sounded like he was on something, either drunk or some drugs, or
usually they are. Usually a lot of these people are on, psychosis inducing drugs.
They're on something,
on alcohol or
white guilt, maybe. Just
that too. What's that thing called? Critical race theory. That messes you up.
And so he was just berating this black cop. He was saying, he's like, "You're a piece of shit. I hope your kids. I hope your kids know you're a piece of shit. Like you're part of the problem." And I mean, he was just going on for like a minute. And in the age of COVID, he wasn't wearing a mask. The white agitator, and so
the terrorist,
maybe. But he was spitting all over, and the black cop had a face shield, so he had something. But so one of the other cops it was like, "Hey man, like you're not wearing a mask, you at least step back." He's like, I'm just First Amendment rights, man. And he was just being just an asshole. But so for the rest of that week, the news story was then kind of the statues and monuments,
right?
That because obviously, like with Charlottesville, that started with the statue of Robert E. Lee, and everyone's like, and people are like, well, Confederacy, take that down, and I can, and personally, I'm kind of
sure.
I'm kind of in favor of that, just because I mean they were traitors to the United States, but then the problem is then they take it a step further and say, well they had slaves, period. Then they George Washington, Thomas Jefferson, and then they're like, oh well, then let's also take down this statue of Abraham Lincoln at Emancipation Park. Because
I was there for that one.
Yeah, because the depiction of him with Abe Lincoln standing tall and the slave kind of at his feet kneeling down, like subservience to him, and it's just like,
there was a dude at that park. I think he does tours. Maybe you've seen him before. He does tours. The black guy, he does tours.
Yeah, wasn't he the guy that goes to Princeton or something? Was it that guy?
Can't remember. He just wears a little, like, it almost looks like a conductor's hat.
Yeah, that guy. Yeah.
And he's always out there in BLM Plaza with a sign that says, like, stop hating each other because we think differently, which I agree with. But he got out there and he was, like, trying to educate people on, like, listen, they turned the statue. The statue was actually facing... he was just saying we shouldn't take it down, but that we need to reorient it the way that it was originally positioned, because that had some greater significance than, like, the way it's oriented now. But
yeah, because the history of that monument memorial, I mean, because it was funded by former slaves. I mean, this was built because they appreciated Abraham Lincoln for his role in preserving the Union and abolishing slavery in the United States. But I mean, in today's realm, just the imagery, again, like their main issue was like how it was being depicted, and that's why it needed to come down. And they're saying, oh well, we don't owe our freedom to white people, and that this is actually just another monument to white people because like they freed us, which is not really true. That's not really true. And so that was kind of the week for that. I had to take a break, so I went kind of a long weekend getaway with some friends, and then I came back, and so I went to New York City after that.
Were you there when Shelby and Richie and Jorge were there?
In New York City?
When they were doing their own little NYC autonomous zone?
Yeah, towards the end. It was towards the end. And so I was there for only a few days. New York City is just an absolute terrible city.
I just recently have been to New York City, and I don't think I've ever seen a cooler looking like city in terms of like just buildings everywhere. I've never seen that ever. It's not like LA, like you can walk from end to end and
it's spread
the
out.
building the buildings stop. There it's like
it's just constant.
Yeah.
I don't like it.
You don't enjoy that.
I don't like that at all. But so I did that. I was only there for a few days, and then because I'm still in the reserves, every year, because we have our monthly drills that happen once a month, but then there's in the summer 2 weeks of annual training. So I was like, okay, I know I'm gonna probably miss something, but like I really hope it's just like if I'm gonna miss it, like it's like towards the end, so I can get there as soon as I can. But literally, the first week that I was at my training for the Marines, that's when Portland became the national story, because that's when it shifted from the county justice center to the federal courthouse.
right.
And then that's when the whole thing of like, oh, Trump's sending in his secret police, his stormtroopers to terrorize,
Snatch people off the streets,
peaceful
and unmarked
protest.
vans.
Yeah, see,
and
it was just all this nonsense. And one, I could just even clearly tell from your stuff that you guys were providing, and it was just like, okay, this is not true. So I was able to go to Portland, but it was towards the very end of that, and then I was supposed to. This is very, very frustrated because I was supposed to do an embed with the DHS.
You would have had that kind of access.
Yeah,
That would have been awesome.
I was literally I had gotten the call because I was working with Border Patrol
okay.
because there was Border Patrol agents there.
Yeah.
So I literally had gotten the call from my Customs and Border Protection contact. And he said, all right, we're good to go. Like, we're set. I'm like, awesome. I'm going to go get ready.
Yeah.
Then I got a call 5 minutes later from my Department of Homeland Security contact. And he said, oh, we actually have to nix it. We have to cancel it. Because they had just reached the agreement with the state, finally, after almost a whole month of this going on every night. They said that the Oregon State Police were going to take over security for it. And so they're just like, well, we don't know how this is going to play out. So we have to, unfortunately, cancel. I'm just like, so I wasn't able to do it as much as I wanted to, just because obviously, as fun as riot coverage is from just a outside perspective, I do kind of want to see the internals of how police do it and see how they handle it, and you provide kind of that side of the story type of deal. So
yeah, that always gets that. I mean, that I feel like it got lost a lot of what they had to go through every night because it went on for a month.
It was yeah. Well,
it went on for a month.
Well, just specifically the federal. Side of things, but I mean the Portland Police Bureau has had to deal with it for months.
Yeah.
And so I did that. I came back, and then the next big thing was Kenosha,
right?
Which you came late to, by the way.
Did I get there late? I got there. Okay, here was the thing. The funny part was this was the dumbest.
You missed everything.
The dumbest part, guys. The dumbest part was that I was in Chicago. Like a few days prior to that. Like I was in Chicago with Elijah Schaefer and Drew Hernandez, and we went over to Mayor Beetlejuice's house.
Yeah.
And we couldn't film on the sidewalk.
Yeah, I remember.
They were
that.
like, hey, you guys aren't, the law enforcement, they were like, you guys aren't allowed to film on the sidewalk. Well, why not? Well, because, can you show us a law, XYZ, all that kind of stuff. And that kind of made its rounds slightly on Twitter. But I was like, you know what? There's nothing happening in Chicago. We covered a little bit of stuff, and, nothing really got out of control. And so I'm in the air that night on my way back to Los Angeles. And I pay for the Wi-Fi.
Yeah, I pay for the Wi-Fi. Yeah.
And Drew Hernandez tells me he's going to Kenosha. I'm like, what is this? And I guess earlier that day, somebody had been shot. I forget what's his name? Jacob Blake. And this city is on fire. And I'm like,
literally the first night.
Right.
Yeah, literally the first night.
City's on fire first night. So I land, I sleep, I get back on a plane, and I'm flying back out. And yeah, I mean, I think the next day I get to do, I went and I did a traditional news package the day after, but I mean the whole freaking place, cars, car lots, buildings, entire sections of this city that had historical buildings.
Yep.
And it's not a big, it's not like a big metropolitan area.
No.
Like this is like a,
it's a town
of
100,000 people.
Yeah.
And actually I knew about Kenosha before all that because my first unit was at Marine Air Control Group 48, which is at Great Lakes. So it's in North Chicago.
Okay.
So it's only about 20 minutes from the Wisconsin border, and then it's probably about like 35, 40 minutes from Kenosha. So some of my sergeants had actually commuted to North Chicago from Kenosha. And so we, at the end of one of our annual trainings, we went over to our sergeant's house to like have a cookout and celebrate like, hey, we're done with this. So I actually knew about it, and so
and you had been in that downtown area before.
Yeah, their place wasn't too far from that, and so all of a sudden I see this video, the video that everyone saw of him being shot in the back 7 times. I'm just like, oh, this is bad.
Yeah, that was a.
So I literally sent a email to my bosses at like midnight. I'm like, hey, I'm gonna monitor this. I'm gonna see if it's worth going to. And then by 3 o'clock, seeing Drew's tweets and seeing other tweets, I was just like, and then so 3 o'clock, I sent him like, yeah, you guys gotta send me.
Right.
So I was on the first flight out there too, and then I, you never know if these things, like how long these things will continue. But I mean, that was probably about 3 nights.
Yeah.
Three nights where it's just total chaos. And so yeah, the first night we were there, again, things were peaceful during the day, and then it became night, and then that's when they just.
What's your opinion? Do you think that these black bloc people are from Kenosha? Do you think that those people are from Kenosha?
I think some of them are. I mean, but
think about it.
But here's the thing: they're not. And so Kenosha, I think, was just especially bad because usually, if one of these riots are taking place, it's either in a city with a lot of people, or it's in a town that's near one city.
Right.
Kenosha is sandwiched in between Milwaukee and Chicago.
True.
So it's not that, it's literally like 45 minutes from both sides. So there was definitely an influx of people that didn't live in Kenosha who either were there to protest or were there to take advantage of what was going on. I actually remember after the Kyle Rittenhouse situation, Shelby and I were walking back to our hotel, and we just see this long caravan of cars, and we noticed that they're like almost all their tires were flat. And they were driving on the flat tires, and I just kind of joked like, "Oh, hey, like wow, those are some pretty flat tires you guys got there." And they said, "Yeah, the cops slashed our tires." I'm like, "Oh, really?" Like that's I was like, "Well, where are you guys from? Like, where are you guys going to?" They're like, "Oh, well, we're from Milwaukee." I was just like, "Oh, like, well, how do you guys plan on getting back to Milwaukee?" And they're like, "Well, we're just trying to get out of Kenosha." I'm like, "Yeah, that's probably a good idea."
Yeah.
But yeah, no. So I think that's one of the reasons why it was just as bad as it got, because you have people from 2 cities, 2 large cities, coming in to do their thing, which is either protest or to riot, and then also just because the police force there was just not able to handle it on its own. And in the first night that we were there, the National Guard wasn't deployed until like 11 o'clock at night. So the things had been going on for about 3 hours at that point in terms of rioting, and so. They were using just their bodies, having a line of cops to protect the county courthouse. And so that's where most of the cops and sheriff's deputies were stationed at. So once the National Guard was able to deploy and put their people in the county courthouse, that's when then they started to send out their teams to respond to fires. Because the firefighters needed security.
Right.
To be able, so they weren't able to respond to them until they were able to start sending out teams. To secure a location, make it safe, and then have the fire department come. But I mean, there were just so many fires that they had to just drive by some of the smaller ones to get to just the ones that were, that needed the most attention. So, then we have Rittenhouse and that whole ordeal.
So where were you when that happened? Because I'll tell you this. They pushed everybody out of the park.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
And
because they were rioting. They weren't protesting.
No, they were rioting.
They were rioting.
When I walked out there, and we stayed in a hotel that was like right across the corner, right? It was on the other corner.
I'm surprised they didn't get burned down, honestly.
I'm surprised too. They were trying to get in.
Yeah,
I'll get to that. They were trying to get in. And I have footage of that I never posted because it was just it was just weird. It was awkward. But they were trying to get in the back doors. But for a lot of people who weren't there, they don't know that on top of the hotel we were staying in was National Guard. They were on top. But
they were really?
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah. They were on tops of buildings. And I think that I remember seeing a video of some green lasers coming off the tops of buildings too.
Oh.
Which, I don't know. Maybe it was the other way around. Maybe somebody was pointing a green laser.
Yeah, because usually you can't see because you can't see the infrared on. You have to have a night vision in order to see that.
You would know, right? You use that kind of stuff. You practice with that kind of stuff.
I'm not that cool, but I have used it.
Okay.
I have used that kind of equipment.
All right, you're cool. Not cool enough to wear the glasses inside. Not cool enough to use.
I can put them back on if you want. If that makes you more comfortable.
Well, whatever. I'm pretty comfortable around you, buddy. So,
right,
but
this interview's done.
He's like, all right, goodbye. No, so right, so we're right across the street, and as soon as I got out there, they were already shooting mortars, throwing all kinds of stuff, and the guys were just lined up, and they had set garbage trucks on fire the night before, like just. The city, everything.
Yeah, you have to know, like, just the guy, like the county or the city guy who's like, hey, to make it safe, like, let's just put our garbage trucks as roadblocks. And there's like, damn it, Carl, like all of them are gone now.
Yeah.
That was really poor planning on that.
Like, hey, there's not any money in the budget to get new trash trucks.
Because literally every single one was set on fire.
Yeah.
I feel bad for that guy who made that suggestion. He's probably not. Whatever.
Well, how do you plan? I don't know. How does there? Well, you better have a contingency plan now, because look, there's plenty of examples where this type of stuff has happened now over this summer of chaos. But anyway, so we get pushed out of the park, and I remember meeting up with you on the corner across the street from the gas station. Mm-hmm. And you walked over, I think, right as like there was the Libertarians and there was the BLM and there was the Antifa, and that's where
Joseph
Rosenbaum was yelling the N-word.
Yeah, I was the one that got that on video. That's my video.
That's your video.
That is my video.
Okay, so
because like that was part of like I'm just recording this them going back because it's part of like a minute and it's a 1 minute and 30-second long video.
Yeah,
and so I was just recording it. And then that him saying, shoot me, shoot me.
Yeah, he said, shoot me N-word, shoot me N-word. And he wasn't saying it to like a black person. He was saying it to like a white guy with an AR-15 hanging off of his chest.
And then at the end he's like bust on me, no, for real.
Yeah, it was just weird. It's a weird, eerie kind of video to watch because
and I'm trying to process all this. So my initial thought was like, haha, okay, that's kind of weird and funny because it's this white short guy that's
aggressive, like very, very aggressive. But it makes sense when you.
But it fits into the whole thing that later plays out. So then. The armed civilian side of things then went across this because they were just continually getting into fights or verbal fights with each other, and so the armed civilian side made the smart decision to just remove themselves completely from them, and so they went to the gas station that was directly across the street from there, and then the armor, the police Bearcat vehicles, they then started to pull up the street again, and so then the crowd started to follow them. And then all of a sudden, the police started to then make their way back down the street, down south. It was weird. And so initially, I thought things were done for the night because there was about like 10 minutes.
That's what I thought too.
Because the people, the rioters were not rioting. They were just standing on one side of the street, and the cops were on the other side of the street. And it was just kind of, they were just looking at each other. And so I thought, okay, things are done. All right, we'll just wait around, see what's going on.
Well, there was a minute. Okay, so I saw you and Jorge running down the street, and I caught up with you guys, and then you were like, "Hey, get the F out of here! Like this is our beat or whatever." You know what I mean? There was a
there was a tire fire.
There was the tire fire, and I went and investigated further. You didn't stick around, I don't think. You went back to the gas station.
Yeah, I went back to the intersection.
But I investigated further, and there was 2 Antifa inside the building.
Yeah, we saw them briefly, and they were just kind of like, but I didn't know what they were going to do. So I was like,
it was very weird, and I was like asking the guy who came outside. I was like, "Oh, did you start this fire?" He's nope. I was like, "Well, are you going to put it like?" Are you gonna put it out or something? And he was like, he said it was beautiful and that I should just enjoy it or something. I was like,
okay, so he set the fire then.
This is weird. I was like, this is weird. This is like a Hills Have Eyes kind of town where like, there's mutants in the garage, and there's a tire fire, and it's like luring in all the moths. Remember that? That meme with the moths in the lamp. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah, lamp.
Yeah,
Lamp.
yeah. So then I see you talking to the people at the gas station. That's the next time I saw you.
Yeah.
Minutes later, I crossed the street with Shelby, and I think maybe only. That's where I saw guys running down the street with the umbrellas. They were like in the center of the road, and they were like trying to throw stuff at the Bearcat or whatever that thing is called.
Yeah, Bearcats. Yeah.
And it's really a silly looking
maneuver.
maneuver.
At the start of the riot, when they're at the courthouse, I literally got them again, like using the umbrellas as cover.
Right.
And then the guy in the back, he's trying to throw a water bottle. He chucked it, and it was such a weak throw. It literally just went like straight up, and then it just barely came back down on the other side. It went nowhere near the fence. It's just like, come on, guy, like you got to put some oomph into it.
Try a little bit harder.
Probably all the soy. That
he forgot to eat his Wheaties. Forgot to eat his Wheaties that morning.
So I'm just standing on the street corner. I don't know where you or Shelby are at. I don't know where Jorge's at because we kind of got lost in the mix.
Yeah.
And then we start hearing gunfire. And, acting like the rational person I am, I just start running towards it.
That's rational, right?
The sound.
Well,
the
our
sound
minds work differently than I think everyone else. Everybody else would be like, well, that's where the gunfire is. I'm going to go that way.
Yeah. And
we're like, where's the gunfire? Let's go toward it.
Yeah, let's go towards that. And so then I see this guy running down the other side of this. So actually, quite a few people were actually running towards the sound of gunfire because I think they were just curious.
Yeah.
More than anything. But then I see this one white guy just running the opposite direction. Then I can hear people. Then I can hear people saying, "Oh, he shot somebody! And I noticed that he had a rifle. I'm just like, "Oh, what's going on over here?" So right as I pull out, because I put my phone away. So right as I pull out my phone to start recording this, because I don't know what's about to happen. That's when a skateboard dude, Anthony Huber, I see him trying to hit Rittenhouse. Now I don't know if he was able to hit him. I don't know how much contact he made with him. Because after he swung, the skateboard flew out of his hand.
Oh, okay.
So when my video that I got starts recording, you can see the skateboard going down the street to the left, and then Huber running after it. So then Huber then picks up his skateboard, then cuts back to the right because while that was happening, that's when Kyle tripped and fell down.
Oh, okay.
So I don't know if that.
So he picked the skateboard up after throwing it.
No, he tried to hit him,
but he picked it up and tried to go back to hit him again.
Yeah, he did. Well, he did. He did hit him again.
Yeah.
And so Huber's running up to him. This other guy that to this day we don't know who it is. This other guy tries to like jump kick.
Oh yeah, the infamous
jump kick dude,
ninja kick guy.
Yeah, and so Kyle fired twice. He misses him.
Yeah.
And then right after the guy lands on the ground and runs away, that's when Huber then comes up and then he does hit Kyle with the skateboard, and then all of a sudden you hear one shot, and then so at this point I don't know what's about to happen. I don't know if they're gonna fight over the rifle, and then the barrel of the rifle is gonna go in all different directions, and I don't know if he's just gonna start popping off rounds to try to scare people away. I don't know what this guy's gonna do, and so And so I start going down. So it's called Sheridan Road, and then there was an intersection of 61st Street. So I was on 61st Street. I started to go back down that road while still trying to get video. I obviously wanted to get video, but I didn't want to get shot over it. And so then I hear the gunshot, and then I see Huber grabbing his chest and then dropping his skateboard and then falling to the ground. I then all of a sudden start hearing gunshots from behind me, like really close behind me, and then someone shouted they're in their car. So I'm thinking, oh wait, are people doing drive-bys right now? Like literally.
So there was reports. We had reports from eyewitnesses. Jorge and I afterward, we went out to the crime scene, but we had heard from eyewitnesses saying that there were people driving by and shooting, and you're confirming that.
If that's
from what you're saying,
yeah, because when someone said like they're in their car, there was a car driving by with at the same time gunshots were happening.
Interesting.
So it was just a mad couple minutes where it was just gunshots all over the damn place. I did not see Kyle shoot Gage. Gross. He has a really weird last name.
Grosskreutz?
Grosskreutz, yeah.
You didn't see the...
I didn't see that because I kind of J-hooked around a parked car. Because for those of you watching, if you find yourself in a shootout, get behind the engine block of a car. That's the safe. Because literally that was it. Like, there was nothing else that I could get like hard cover behind, and so I didn't see that part because I was at this point. I'm just like, all right, I'm just gonna try to keep my head down.
Right.
And so I then that's when Shelby texted me saying, "Oh, we're by the hospital because Richie McGinnis was right near the scene of the first set of the shooting." And so I said, okay, like I'll make my way over there. So I'm going down. So I avoided Sheridan Road because then the cops started to come in, and so I didn't want to avoid that. So I started going the road that runs parallel to it. And then again, like another 10 shots go off, and I don't
Really?
know. Yeah. Oh yeah, dude. There was just gunshots all over the damn place. It was just crazy. And then all of a sudden, then as I'm walking up, that's when the cops then started to like roll in deep, in force. Finally, about like 4 minutes too late. And so I was able to then meet up with Shelby, and then that's when she told me, I'm like, well, hey, where's Richie? He's like, oh, and you're like, no, he was literally right there. And then she showed me the video. I was like, oh wow, like, geez.
Yeah.
I thought I was close. he was right there.
Yeah.
And so then we went over to the hospital and tried to figure out where he was. He was still talking to the cops, and then when we realized that he was going to be talking to the police for a very long time, that's when we then called it a night and and then at that point, Europe was waking up into the news of all this, and so I've been in contact with a bunch of BBC people in the UK and Ireland about what was happening, and then obviously with all the shootings, they were very interested. And actually, I made my debut on like BBC TV.
Oh, you did.
That was the first interview that I gave recounting. I was so tired. It was at that point. It was like 4 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah,
been going like hard all night, and it was just. But so Kenosha was just. I think if it was like a per capita or like proportionally based, I think that would be the worst that I like saw, because like Minneapolis was just the worst in terms of like scale, just because it was so big.
Yeah.
But I mean, Kenosha is like a town of 100,000 people. It's not that big. It's got like a small town vibe. It's got a nice, because it's right on the lake, so it's got this nice lakefront area, and so I think if we were to do it like on a per capita basis or like a proportionally, I think that would be like number one if we did it based off of that. But I mean, it's still pretty messed up, even to this day, unfortunately. And the New York Times did a good follow-up story fairly recently, and I found out that some families that lived above the businesses that were burned out, they were able to escape, but some of the family pets were burned alive.
Oh my God.
Yeah, and like that's fucked up.
What the fuck?
Yeah, and so it's just a tragedy. What happened to people who had nothing to do with the whole Jacob Blake thing, and
like innocence being lost. You know what I mean? Or just innocence under attack.
And then we have the Rittenhouse thing, which adds like a whole other layer to it.
Yeah.
And polarization, and because people are talking about him again because he just got he
made bail.
He made right? $2 million of bail.
That's a lot of money.
That's a lot of money. And so again, what I'll say is that there's a lot of people who are talking about it. A lot of people who have their opinions on it, and unfortunately, you have to see all of the video that was taken that night. You to really get a context of what led up. Ultimately, and this is what I told Tucker after, like literally after I came back. It's like ultimately that whole situation is at the fault of the local and state leadership, because either they didn't have the manpower, which they should have by that. I think it was a Thursday. Like that Thursday, like they should have had the manpower to put a stop to this. They didn't. So either they didn't have the manpower, they didn't have the orders to really stop it, or they just didn't have the will, I guess. whatever it was. I mean, there was clearly even the sheriff admitted that, like, oh yeah, like we thought we put in a request to the Wisconsin National Guard, but we had our wires crossed. Those were his words.
What does that mean?
Yeah, like we had our wires crossed, and it turns out we didn't actually put in the official request, so that's why there was a delay in the National Guard. And then so it literally had to take Trump calling Tony Evers, the governor, to be like, hey, you just had all these shootings. Like, either you got to get under control or I will. And so Tony Evers finally relented and sent in more National Guard, because I think the first night was only like 150, 200, which is not enough to kind of have the resources available to, allow the peaceful protests to happen, because they did, but then have the manpower to stop the rioting. Whatever it was, that's ultimately it's that leadership failure, and that failure to act is what led to those conditions to where something like those shootings take place. And like I said, he wasn't the only one shooting. There was multiple shootings. It's just that one obviously got the attention because that's where the ones that people actually got hit and died.
Yeah. Insane stuff, man.
Yeah.
Insane stuff. After Kenosha, I haven't really seen anything too crazy. There hasn't been anything too crazy. I mean, I visited Portland a lot. I've been to Portland a ton, but it's like that almost on a regular basis now. Not
even now it's kind of
dying down a little.
Yeah.
It's dying down a little bit.
But yeah. So after that, kind of the next big thing was Louisville, because that's when
that's right. Did you get arrested there?
No,
you didn't get arrested.
No, I didn't. No,
so you were there though.
I was in Louisville for the grand jury announcement or verdict for the Breonna Taylor case, and so I had a friend from college who lives in that area, so I was able to stay over at his place. But yeah, no, that was kind of like the next kind of rioting situation, and it was the first time where I wore my rifle plating that I got, my new rifle plates that I got. Because
how heavy is that?
It's about 7 pounds.
Oh, that's it.
Well, for one plate, because I have two, so it's
okay.
So 14 pounds,
and then that's not bad.
And then my helmet, and then all the gear. Yeah, so it's kind of my right knee is very, very angry with me.
Oh yeah.
But anyway, so that was the next kind of thing, and that proved to be worthwhile, because I had handgun plating up until Kenosha, because that's lighter.
Yeah.
Up until then, my main concern was handguns, because I was working in inner city, but and even in places like Kentucky where there's open carry, there was BLM and Antifa people with AR-15s and AK-47s, and not just handguns. And then it was, wearing that body armor was prudent, because then because we were in the crowd, the marching crowd, where the guy shot the two Louisville police officers. Shelby and I.
Right.
We were marching together, so so that was kind of the next big thing. So then we were trying to figure out what to do next and like where to go.
You weren't the one that got the video footage of them unloading stuff, right?
Yeah, I got that.
That was you, right?
Yeah, that was me too. It was Shelby, BG on scene, and myself. We got video of that. That was the first time I ever seen something like that, because
it's weird when you get there early. Or they get there late and they start setting up in front of everyone.
Well, yeah, because I hear this woman who had an AR-10. I believe.
What's the difference? I don't know.
Different caliber.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
Yeah, different caliber. It's a heftier one.
Oh.
But yeah, no. So we started hearing shields, shields, and so initially we thought that she was asking the people that had shields to be at the front of the marching crowd. But then we noticed that she was pointing to the U-Haul truck, and then as we got closer, we could hear her saying, "We have shields, we have shields," and then all of a sudden, that's when you see people rushing over and grabbing the banners, grabbing the shields, and grabbing all sorts of supplies. And then that was the first time I ever seen it. Was just mad. It was almost like a Black Friday shopping.
And I think somebody actually, funny story, basically called her pretending to be from U-Haul. And got her to like admit and basically exposed her, and really kind of a funny video.
Antifa not sending their best.
Yeah, exactly. When they're sending their troops in, they're not sending their best.
So Yeah, and then a few minutes later, I got a video of a guy shouting at the cops to like get ready to fucking die.
Oh my god!
And then it almost came to fruition because then two cops got shot.
I shouldn't be laughing at that. It
Well,
just
well,
sounds insane when you
y-
hear it in this setting. It's like this is insane, LOL. But that's literally what happened.
Yeah, that's literally what happened. And so after the shootings, people were still kind of marching around, trying to figure out what to do. And then I like, oh well, because at literally that week before, that's when the two sheriff's deputies here in Los Angeles County, well not here, but in Los Angeles County, got shot. And then that's when we saw the BLM protesters come out and try to break into the hospital where they were being treated. And so I said, well, Shelby, that might happen here too if they're brave enough. So we went over there, but then National Guard and police were guarding the hospital. So we stayed there for the press conference that the police chief gave. So the reason why I wasn't with Shelby is because after the press conference and after I appeared on Ingram's show, yeah, it was Ingram, I get a message from some of my colleagues at PJ Media, which is part of the Townhall Media family.
Townhall Media.
They sent me a message and they said, "Hey, if we do this story about Chad Loader's tweet, would that put you more in danger?" I'm like, "Chad, like who?"
Chad Loader.
Chad Loader. Yeah. You probably know who that guy is.
Yeah, that guy is obsessed with me. For those of you who don't know, Chad Loader is a psychopath tech guy from I don't know what
he's
he is.
Here. He's in the Los Angeles.
He's in the Los Angeles area,
yeah.
and he stalks my Twitter. Does he stalk your Twitter? And does he just like
So I went to the guy's account. He blocked me. So
right, he's got an auto block for like anybody. If like it's just very weird.
And so I then tell him like, no, what's going on? And so like send me the screenshot. And so then they sent me the screenshot, and it turns out he tweeted like 6 hours earlier, saying that Julio Rosas, the fascist propagandist, who lionized the Kenosha murderer, is in Louisville, Kentucky. If you see him, call him out, which is kind of code word for
go attack him and try to kill him. Yeah, that's literally what that means.
That's the veiled threat that that he should say. Oh, well, that's not what I said. It's like that's what you meant.
Yeah,
like, don't lie. Like man up to it.
Yeah.
So I was just saying, oh wow, and I'm like, this isn't good. And so I said, how long ago was this sent? 6 hours? Yeah, I'm going to call it a night. And, there was already a shooting.
Yeah.
I kind of got what I wanted to get. I'm tired. So I'm just like, I'm done. So I told Shelby, like, I'll see you guys later. And then it took me about 20 minutes, 30 minutes to get back to my buddy's place. And then all of a sudden, I'm seeing their tweets like, yeah, we're about to get arrested. I'm just like, oh, I'm sorry, what? And so, so actually, Chad Loader, thank you so much. Because of you, I did not get arrested because I would have, or else I would have been with them.
Yeah.
In I forgot the park's name, but so as much as a terrible person Chad Loader is, he did save me from spending a night in jail. So I have him to thank for that.
Well, you know what? Be thankful for the fleas. There's a story that I heard once quite a few years ago about the some Jews were staying in the
Where's this going?
This was Nazi Germany, right?
Oh, okay.
But they were maybe it was like Corey Tenenbaum's story or something like that. These women were in the Holocaust camp, and this is kind of random, but
yeah, this is random.
Basically there was fleas, and one of the women was like, be thankful for the fleas, when the reason was because the guards wouldn't come over and beat or rape them.
Oh, because they didn't want to get the fleas.
Because the fleas were there. So it was kind of like a double-edged sword where it's like Chad Loader is a flea, but you didn't end up in jail. It's like...
Yeah, and so then it was really fun because then probably the next month we were in Wauwatosa, Wisconsin.
I wasn't there.
Yeah, I know.
Where have I been?
You're saying that there hasn't been much. There was like, bro, there's been like 4 things. There's been like 4 big things since Kenosha. So
yeah,
but no. So I was in Wauwatosa the first night for this riot, and then the next night, that's when the Day of the Color crew came out because they were in Minneapolis.
Right.
That night. So then they came down, and so all of a sudden, then I was separate from them, and I was trying to get to where they were. And they were trying to cover this caravan because they were caravanning from Milwaukee to Wauwatosa, and so the cops finally had put a stop to it, and so they were trying to get video of them getting arrested. all of a sudden the cops start directing their attention towards Richie and Shelby and Jorge and or no, not Jorge wasn't there, no, but towards the Daily Caller crew and BG on scene because he was with them. And so then the cops said, hey, get out of here. So they said, okay. And so they start going back towards the rental car. And then all of a sudden, these cops just start running after them. They're like, get on the ground. And so then they just beat the hell out of them.
Oh shoot!
And so afterwards, I told him like, okay, I have to stay away from you guys because clearly you keep attracting the police's ire with their stuff.
Yeah.
First you're getting arrested, now you're getting brutalized by them. And so Philadelphia the week before the election was kind of the last big thing because then
did you get there the first night, the second night,
the second night,
and then I think I got there the third night when nothing happened.
Literally nothing happened.
Nothing happened.
Literally nothing happened.
It sucked. I mean, it's good.
It's good.
It's good.
It's good.
But it's like, listen, I'm an EMT by trade, and it's like I don't get experience. I don't learn anything. Nobody gets any news if nothing happens. But also, it's good if nothing happens.
It's
like,
good enough
you know
to-
what I mean?
Yeah,
I don't know.
There's enough pain and suffering.
It's a weird kind of backward.
The last kind of riot here the week the few days before Thanksgiving was the Million MAGA March. Not because of the Trump supporters. The Trump supporters didn't riot.
No, they didn't.
It was the Antifa BLM activists that came out at night, as they always do.
Yeah. They're like vampires or like gremlins or, you know what I mean? Like if they, I wonder often, like if we fed them before the sun went down, they wouldn't do this. Like a gremlin, you know what I mean? You don't feed it after 12 p.m. or when the sun goes down, otherwise they turn into these crazy monsters. Maybe not.
And so that was kind of the last thing. And so definitely the tempo has slowed down because Biden, the transition from Trump to Biden has started. And that's kind of funny too, because I remember before the election, they were saying that, Trump is going to, you can't believe they have to board up their businesses because Trump is the one fueling all this. And I wrote this for Town Hall saying like, look, I didn't wear body armor. I didn't bring my helmet, didn't bring my gas mask. I wasn't prepped for a riot on election night because I was outside the White House on election night.
Yeah.
I wasn't prepped for a riot because I was concerned about Trump supporters rioting.
Yeah.
I was concerned about Biden supporters or, less enthused supporters because, rioting. It's as simple as that. And it would prove to be correct because there was no mass rioting right after the election.
Right.
I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. It's just this whole BS narrative that's just always constant. That's always one thing. Because I remember seeing Ellie Velshi from MSNBC in Minneapolis, and I was busy covering the riot, so I didn't know what he was saying. And then it wasn't until I got back to my hotel room that he said that it's not generally unruly protest, but it as a building is burning behind him,
and then soon after that you had the CNN, right?
Yeah, and then in Kenosha, the CNN reporter Omar Jimenez. Yeah. I don't think he said anything. It was the Chiron. Yeah, it was the Chiron. And when I first saw that on Twitter, I thought it was like,
this is fake.
Yeah, I thought like, wow, that Photoshop is really good because I was thinking like, there's no way that CNN would pull this right after all the shit that MSNBC got for what they did. But then lo and behold, like I found out like no, like they actually ran that.
And you have to think that like they're laughing when they're making this, like, dude, Jim, do you see, like, should we do this? Like, dude, send it to Bill. Like, can we get this approved? Like, this is hilarious. Like, it's literally on fire, and we're gonna pull this off.
Yeah, but yeah, they did that,
and they do.
And so, there's always a BS narrative, and that's why it's important for people like me, and just me. But no, it's good having people from the Daily Caller, having independent people like you and Drew and Elijah there, because one, the mainstream media reporters are terrible at covering these things, and I understand why. I mean, because in Kenosha,
I can't figure it out. I have I try to reason in my mind
because in Kenosha, the New York Times did have a reporter on the ground, but she left at like 9:00 because she was told by the sheriff department like, yeah, you probably shouldn't be there, and so I understand that like, okay, if it's too dangerous. Because it is. But at the same time, it's important because this is, there's whole cities on fire or there's whole mass unrest and people need to know what going on in these situations because there's all these false narratives that are out there that can be disproven through our work, and so that's why I think it's important. And I do feel bad, and because personally, my career has never been better. I mean, the only reason why you're talking to me is because people give a shit about what I say.
Well, and also we met because of this
whole
stuff.
Yeah, this whole season.
I mean?
Yeah, this whole season that we're in. But and so it kind of feels like I'm profiting off of people's on their worst day and their misery. But at the same time, it's important because if their stories aren't covered, then their pain is going to go unnoticed, and they're just going to suffer in silence.
Yeah,
and that's not right. And so I think so. It's important to obviously cover the riots as they're happening, but then also the aftermath of that, because some of these places. I mean, I was in Minneapolis in September.
Yeah,
there was a whole especially the hard hit areas. It looked like the riots happened like 3 weeks ago, not 4 months ago,
and nothing has been done.
Very little has been done.
Or actually, I think I'm hearing stories that they're like, hey, maybe we want to walk this back, this decision to
abolish the police department. Well, yeah, I mean,
they're like, wait, it's not working how we thought it would, and it's like, dude.
well, because Minneapolis wasn't exactly the safest city to begin with pre the George Floyd stuff, but afterwards, I mean, the crime has just gone through the roof, and a lot of officers have left. I mean, they're budgeted for 888 officers. I think right now they're close to 700.
So that much of a difference, it's only 100
or so difference, because and so like I said, that's what they're budgeted for. I mean, they can have more than that, I believe, but I mean that's the bare. And the police chief said look, if we drop below 550, I can't guarantee the safety of anybody in the city. I mean, and that's kind of the point where some of these places are at. And so when you see people saying abolish the police, and you see all that, but then there's not a whole lot of thought into, okay, well, what does that look like? You have some ideas, social workers and whatnot, but even in CHAZ, people were handing out flyers. And it was one group, and I'm not saying it speaks for the whole movement, but there was one group that was handing out flyers. Okay, what does a post, abolish Seattle PD look like? And they were saying well, yeah, we might have to have some people that are armed that are accompanying these people. It's okay, well, that's just an officer with extra steps.
Yeah.
And it was really funny too, because in CHAZ there was a street preacher who didn't seem to have all of his marbles in place. But he was there, and he was kind of being loud. But so he got onto the stage that the Chazers were speaking from.
Yeah.
And so he just kind of curled up into a ball, and he wasn't moving. And so someone on stage said, "Is there a white person who has experience in security that is willing, that feels comfortable with helping us out here?" It's so a cop? Are you asking for a cop right now? It feels like you're asking for a police officer right now.
That's a great point.
And then of course, because they're very against chokeholds.
Oh right, yeah.
They used a chokehold on him.
I remember that, and you know who I think did that? I think it was Luis Marquez, who's a known Rose City Antifa member.
I don't know, but there's just this whole movement is just filled with irony that I don't think they see, or if they do, they try to justify it away. And also, what I think is also
maybe they don't see it.
Well, I think it's really
they don't care.
It's really funny because they always say oh, it's mostly peaceful. It is a peaceful movement. If anybody is acting violent, it's right wing people, it's outside infiltrators. But through all these places that I've covered, they really are. They're either bad at policing those outside people that that try. Because in Wauwatosa, the most disturbing thing I saw there was that they were attacking houses.
Oh yeah, just residential neighborhoods.
Just, literally, they were walking through. They had just finished busting up all these businesses, which is par for the course that we see. It's just kind of okay, we've seen this before. But then all of a sudden, I noticed that you see these people just going towards these houses, and unprovoked. And so to some of the crowd's credit, they did try to stop them, but it was kind of a half-hearted attempt. but then in Chicago, when there was this big looting spree that just kind of appeared
overnight,
yeah. The official Black Lives Matter Chicago chapter was justifying that, saying, we don't care.
Of course they are. It's all insured. It's all insured. It's all insured.
And so it's funny because they will want to talk about revolution and changing the system, but as soon as like there are actions taken to the extreme, they all of a sudden want to be distant from all that rhetoric that they were talking, because their flyers have like cop cars on fire, buildings on fire,
flames.
But as soon as people start putting that into practice, they're like, oh no, we had nothing to do with that. It's just like, do you want a revolution or not? Because do you even know what a revolution is? Because like,
I think they do. They're just playing dumb, right? They're just playing dumb.
And so this isn't to say that they're not peaceful people, and there are, but there's this willingness and this blind eye from the mainstream media that these riots don't really happen on the scale, because remember, after Philadelphia, before the election, there was a New York Times reporter saying, "Oh, right-wing media is just hyping up this riot," because most of the coverage on Twitter that was happening was from us, from myself, from Elijah, Shelby, and Richie, and all those people, and so obviously those clips were being shared. And so he was talking about us and trying to be like we were, but it's like, no, like, dude, this is like mass looting in a major city. It's not that far from New York. I don't understand like why you think that like we're making a mountain out of a molehill here. Like this is happening. Like this is real. Like and so I just look, if you don't want to put in the work, that's fine. I'll pick up the slack. It's fine. I'll do it.
Right.
But then don't say like we're trying to over sensationalize. Like no, they really were. It was just I saw like 5 car crashes in the parking lot.
Yeah. They were. They were just driving around and crashing cars, and I mean it was similar to what I saw from your guys' footage. It was similar to what I saw in Santa Monica with
just people pulling up. Yeah, just people pulling up.
Trucks being loaded up with furniture, people walking around with Dianese motorcycle jackets and helmets, going into CVS, and people are, there's girls stealing makeup, like picking out what they like.
Yeah.
And the total store is
that's exactly what we saw. Yeah.
It was crazy walking into like a Vons, and there's like some lady trying to get out of there. There was a guy who was ripping the security sensor out, and as I walk by, he goes, "This is for getting me in trouble last time." And it's like, so you have a history here. But then there's the lady filling up her cart with like bottles of wine. It's like filled to the brim, pouring
It's wine
over.
o'clock somewhere.
Yeah. It's 1:30.
But no, so it's the work we do. I mean, I don't want to sound like we're like, I don't want to sound arrogant here, but it's important work.
Yes.
It's necessary. Because because like I said, people in the mainstream media are terrible at it when they do it, which is occasional. But it's needed.
There was the CNN guy who went to Portland, and he went out during the day.
Oh, Josh Campbell.
And he goes, "Nothing's happening here. Where's all the terrorists? Or where's all the stuff?
I'm eating a breakfast burrito at this park, and
right.
Everything's fine." It's like, all right, well, try that. Like, here, go outside at night and tell the Antifa Black Bloc people that you're former FBI. See how well that works out for you, and then try to eat your breakfast burrito in peace. It's just like try that and get back to me. But so it's been great. I mean, so this summer's been great in a weird, twisted way. I mean, I admit it's kind of a weird. It's a kind of a sick obsession.
Yes.
But you feel alive at these, right? It's something you don't see every day, which is great. It's great that we're not living continuously in this lawless land. But so when it happens, it's just interesting to see. It is part of history, and you get to we get to document it, and I think that's cool.
Heck yeah. So what's next? I mean, if there was a Trump comes out of nowhere and wins the election, or through some means, through some path,
well, then we'll be busy.
Biden, right? Yeah. We'll be busy. Biden wins.
Well, I mean, he did.
I mean,
through
well,
through the eyes of the transition, at least.
right.
Yeah.
We're getting the transition, and he's gonna have to disclose any relationships and all that stuff. But you're gonna be busy for the next 4 years either way.
Yeah, no,
We all are. We all are.
So I think what I think is going to end up happening is that because this is the United States, I think there will be future situations where an officer shoots someone who's black. Because unfortunately the automatic response to that is just to go crazy before anything is known, whether it was justified or not justified. So those will continue under a Biden administration. So it'll be interesting to see how a Biden administration reacts to it. I think that they will be worse, the riots, because you won't see an automatic, because like with Trump, right? He would immediately tweet out like, "Hey, this city needs to get under control. Send the National Guard. We'll send whatever we need to send." I don't think we'll see those kind of tweets or that kind of action from a Biden-Harris administration. That's what I think. I could be wrong, but I think it would have to be. I think it would have to get very bad, and very very bad, before those sorts of steps be taking place, or at least they won't signal that.
I was thinking that the Biden administration will fix all the problems. Like all the problems will just stop happening. Like no more police shootings, no more COVID. Like Biden will literally cure COVID.
Well, he promised to cure cancer.
Yeah, there you go. Cancer's going away.
Yeah.
Being blind from birth, not going to be a thing anymore. Leprosy, that's going to be gone. He's going to fix all the problems. That's what I think's going to happen. What? And you guys don't believe me? You think it's funny? You don't believe in Biden? Come on, dude. You don't believe in the Biden-Harris?
Look, that's what I'm saying. So I think those situations will happen because they'll inevitably happen somewhere, and so I think unfortunately it will just get worse before it gets better in terms of that. But I don't know. We'll see if it happens. I'm sure I'll see you out there.
Yeah, exactly. Well, you know what? I'll see you out there when something does happen. It's not a matter of if it happens. I'm sure something will happen, and when it does, I'll see you out there. But Julio, thanks for coming on the show. I want to say I really appreciate it, and if you want to plug yourself, do it shamelessly into that camera.
That camera?
Yeah, that one.
All right. So, sorry. I'm not wearing my sunglasses. Yeah, so you could follow me at Julio_Rosas11. Apparently, Julio Rosas was already taken when I made my account, so that's why I have to throw an 11 there.
I used that one time, and I had to delete the tweet.
If you want to fund trips that Townhall sends me out, you can become a VIP subscriber. There's different levels through that, and so you become a VIP subscriber. Exclusive content, and then obviously you get to fund the trips that I take and all the little jaunts I go on. But I'm also on Instagram because I resisted that for a very long time. But now I'm at Julio A. Rosas. I got that.
Okay.
No numbers there.
Okay.
But yeah, no, I just it's great. I enjoy what I do. I really do.
Well, I like what you do. I think you're a fantastic reporter.
No, don't bullshit
you have
me.
huge balls to go out and do what you do. Like I try to find people who will go out with me, and it's like they're like,
No.
"What do you?" People don't want to do what you're doing, dude.
Well, they're not as crazy as us. They're not as sick as us.
I know. We're just
we're
a few. It's literally just a few people, and you're easily one of the best. And you're a great journalist, and we love what you do. Keep doing what you're doing.
Yeah, you're
Julio.
decent too.
Whatever. I'm a douchebag. I appreciate it, Julio. Thank you.
Of course.
All right.